Bye, girls. See you tomorrow up there. It is adventure time of a little bit of a different sort. So right now I'm by myself in the truck taking our trailer up to our camping location, and Jessica is going to join me tomorrow in the Tesla. We're going to the ham radio field day again. We did this last year and I made a short little video about it, and we powered several of our neighbors last year. Well, in talking to them that last year and more recently, I offered to go up there with them again this year and try to power even more of them. And they have ham radios going for a 24-hour period straight. And I'm going to see if I can power as many of those radios as possible, and potentially other things, other rigs as well. I'm going up on a Thursday and getting the trailer set up, and then Jessica and the kids will be coming up tomorrow in the Tesla. So it's a little bit of a different trip than usual, since we're usually all going together in the truck, and if we're taking the trailer, of course. So this is going to be a fun little different type of trip for us. It's not so much about the adventure as much as it is just hanging out with some friends and also testing the technology that we have here on the trailer. So we're going up to Strawberry Reservoir. It's some boondocking, BLM land just north of Strawberry Reservoir, and it's about an hour and 15-minute drive away, or about 60 miles from our house. So I'll take you along for the ride and show you the setup and how well it goes. I used to ride my motorcycle up and down this canyon for years and years and years on a regular basis, especially at key times of the year, like in the fall when there's beautiful fall colors, sometimes in the spring as well, like now when the mountains are all green and beautiful. It's a very scenic drive, and that's why there's a crowd of motorcycles that just went by. Hey, there's a Model 3 that just went by. It's a beautiful canyon. This last winter here in Utah, we had a historic amount of snow that fell, like the most over the last 40 years. And it's been a mild spring as well. It hasn't been very hot, so everything is not baked in the sun yet. It's just gorgeous. And with the blue contrast of the water on Strawberry Reservoir, I love it out here. Here is the turnoff for Trout Creek, where we are headed. This was right after all of the snow had finished melting out and the road had dried out. So it was still kind of rough in some places, but just going slowly, it was fine. I've driven on way worse roads. There's a lot of people here already, but there's supposedly going to be even more. The battery of the trailer is down to 68%. I ran it down before we left home, and so it charged somewhat while we were driving here. And I have just turned on the inverters, and I have actually already plugged in some of the trailers next to us. So we have 985 watts right now going out to our neighbors, and we're only getting 53 watts of solar at the moment. All right, over here I have run these power splitters underneath my neighbor's trailer, and that's my trailer over there on the other side. And I've plugged his trailer in here to my electricity monitor. And so his trailer is pulling 410 watts at the moment. And I asked him what he's running, and pretty much only it's 2 refrigerators. He has an outdoor refrigerator, outdoor kitchen rather, that has a small 120 volt refrigerator. And then he has the traditional absorption refrigerator that is running. So 410 watts is what his fridges are pulling. His batteries are full, so it's not the converter charging his batteries. In any case, I'm going to leave him plugged in, and I'm going to now go check my other neighbor that is also plugged in on the other side. This is where I ended up parking. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and another trailer on this side. So we have 5 trailers lined up along here, and I'll see how many of them I can reach. And then in this direction right now we have just the 2 trailers, but we will have more arrive, and there's definitely space on this side of me for another trailer. So let me show you the electrical hookups that I've set up here. As you already know, on the side of my trailer where this battery compartment was for the previous lead acid batteries, I now installed a NEMA 1450 outlet here. So this is capable of outputting up to 20 amps and 240 volts. And so it's coming down here, and then I have these 2 NEMA 1450 50 amp extension cords for RVs. And one of them is going in that direction and is powering that trailer next door, and it will power additional trailers as well. This other extension cord is going off in this direction, and at the other end of the extension cord I have this adapter, and I have done the same thing on the other side. So this is a NEMA 1450 adapter, and it adapts to 4 NEMA 515 outlets. These are standard household outlets. And on those, right now, I have 2 power strips plugged in, and on the other side you saw I had that as well. So I have these 4 power strips. So that gives me a total of 6 outlets right here to work with, as well as another 2 right here, and the same on the other side of the trailer over there. And I also have additional outlets available on the side of my trailer on the other side. I've plugged in this trailer here to my energy monitor, and it is pulling about as much as the other trailer was. So this is 416 watts. I have not yet asked him what he's powering, but I'm guessing it's probably his absorption refrigerator and just other small incidentals on board his trailer as well. So between my 2 neighbors, they're each pulling 800 watts, and my trailer had about, I think it was 900 something watts pulled from it. So my trailer has minimal things running right now, almost nothing. A little bit of standby power maybe being pulled by the induction cooktop. By the way, wow, look how beautiful the sky is. We've got the sunset happening right now, and we have these storm clouds, just gorgeous. And down there is Strawberry Reservoir. So right now we have this trailer, and they're about to run their extension cord over here as well. And I will run them in, I'll plug them into the meter, and we'll see how much power they are pulling as well. One thing that I found is that the weight of these extension cords and this Y splitter was quite a bit of sideways tension being pulled on my outlet here. So I actually used this strap, which is meant for the lead acid battery that used to be here, and I looped it down here underneath the fork of the splitter, and then it's tied into this buckle. So that has relieved all of the strain. All right, we now have the additional trailer plugged in. It's getting real dark, but that trailer right there is plugged in, and this is their additional extension cord here. And you can see they are only pulling 82 watts, so virtually nothing. Nothing to be concerned about there. I will just leave that on at this point. The other ones, if I need to, based on the power that they're still pulling as we go into nighttime, if I feel like the rate of rundown is too quick, I'll have to turn some of them off, and they'll switch their refrigerators back over to propane. It is now 10:30 p.m. and there are a total of 4 trailers plugged into mine right now, plus myself. I don't really have much going on here in my trailer, and you can see we have 1166 watts being pulled out of the battery bank right now. We're inverting just over 1,000 watts right now, and you see L2 has the biggest load on it, but it's still nowhere near its max of 2,400 watts at 863 watts. We're at 51% battery. My battery bank is 9.6 kilowatt hours, so we're close to 5 kilowatt hours of stored energy right now, and at this rate it would run out in 5 hours. But people are using the electricity for various things, and so these are short-term loads, I think, and then they'll drop off, and as people go to bed, I think this will last throughout the night, but that's kind of what the experiment is. And if the battery, we'll see what it is in the morning. It's really a huge unknown right now. The thing is, because the electricity consumption right now is completely out of my hands, I mean, I could go talk to these people, of course, but I generally gave them instructions, and I looked at their loads, so I know generally what they were pulling at that time. Assuming they don't keep pulling a lot of electricity for a long period of time, we'll be able to get through the night probably, but it's just kind of a big experiment. I might wake up in the morning and have a battery down to 0% and all the power's turned off. I hope that doesn't happen, but it won't damage my system. I don't believe it. It's not a huge deal. The Battleboard batteries that I have can be discharged fully, and they'll charge back up as soon as the sun comes up in the morning. And if they do fully discharge, it'll probably be just before sunrise. So let's find out in the morning where the state of charge of this battery is, because I really don't know where it's going to be. It is now 2:30 a.m. I just happened to wake up, and I thought I'd check on the trailer, and you can see that we're down to 10% on the battery. And right now our constant loads are right at 700 watts. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and cut off my neighbors, and they're going to switch over to their own battery systems to go throughout the rest of the night. And we'll see how much power just my trailer is pulling right now. I'm here under the couch, and I can just flick the circuit breaker right here for the external outlet, and that cut off my neighbors. You can see that my trailer is actually only using 54 watts, which is basically the Starlink dish and router is pulling that much energy. So I'm going to definitely be able to get through the rest of the night with this, and the first thing in the morning I'll turn it back on, and then the solar will restore all that power. This is the Victron Monitoring Portal that shows our trailer's electrical system, and this is for that entire day. So I'm going to explain this graph briefly each of the days throughout this trip. Now, obviously this is before the trip started, and this is from the night before, and the battery was around 20%, looks like it bottomed out at 19%. So I'm playing this kind of game, you could call it, but I just want to see how much energy my solar panels can produce throughout the year. And if the battery fills up, then the solar panels stop producing. So my goal is to keep the batteries from getting completely full. And I send the energy into our Tesla Model S primarily, and if we unplug the car and drive it somewhere else, then the batteries in the trailer have to take all of the energy from the solar panels until the car gets back. So I try to keep the trailer's batteries state of charge somewhat low to give us the most buffer of time before the batteries fill up on the trailer. So that's what happened this morning. Jessica was going to be driving somewhere, so I plugged in the car and ran it down, the trailer battery down to 3%. And then she was gone for a couple of hours and it charged up to 83%. And then I plugged the car back in and ran it down to 48%. I knew I was going to be going on this trip, but I knew there was going to be some more solar for the remainder of the day. So that's where I stopped at 48%. Turns out that the battery didn't get as high as I had thought it might. It got to 68%. So in hindsight, I should have run the battery down less here in the day. So here's when I plugged in my neighbors, and they were pulling pretty hard on my battery, and you can see it was descending pretty rapidly into the evening. And so I'll switch to the next day in just a second. I just wanted to point out down here we have total consumption of the day was 11.4 kilowatt hours, and our solar production was 16.7 kilowatt hours. So if we switch to the next day, you can see that they were still pulling hard on the battery until I cut them off in the middle of the night, and that's why it started leveling off, but it still descended down to 5% before the solar started to kick in. And then the rest of this I'll cover in video updates now. It is now 8 a.m. and the battery is at 9%, and we are already getting a kilowatt, which is quite a bit. I was a little bit surprised when I woke up and saw this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my neighbors, and we'll see how much power they start pulling. And it looks like 664 watts is what they're pulling about right now, 650. I think it's going to be sunny later today. I'm just judging by the clouds over in that direction are clearing up. But as it stands right now, that's what the cloud cover looks like. And how that translates to the solar is it has about halved it. So we're down to 530 watts of solar right now. So we're discharging the battery pretty quickly, but that's okay. I'm kind of trying to get ahead of the surge of power that we're going to be getting for the rest of the day. It is now 9:21 a.m. and you can see the cloud cover is completely gone. So we're getting full sun. Right now we're getting, well, it was 1400 watts just a minute ago. About 1300 watts. I definitely have some loads coming and going from different people as they're running their microwaves or whatever else. The battery is down to 1% right now, really close to the bottom, but these high loads are pretty temporary, and then the solar brings it back up. And as the solar continues to increase throughout the day, I expect my battery will as well. Just a minute later and that load dropped off. So you can see this is kind of what the standby loads look like right now. We're sustaining around 700 watts and we're getting 1431 watts from the solar at the moment. And so now we're charging the battery at 646 watts. Right now it is 10 a.m. and you can see the battery is now at 5%, charging at the rate of 1155 watts. So let's go outside and I'll show you what we have going on now because I've added some things. We have this cord coming off over this way and it still only has or it has two trailers. It has this trailer, which I added last night, and this power strip I now have coming off over this way, and it has this extension cord plugged into it, and it's got 100 feet of line. It's going all the way over there to that trailer, and that trailer is one of the stations, the ham radio stations for this ham radio field day. And then over here we still have the same trailers that we added yesterday, but it was getting dark when they arrived. So I have this trailer running on this cord, and then this trailer over here is also on it, and then this trailer here as well. Over here, this is what the cords look like. So we currently have two on this power strip, and then the one that was on that power strip we actually moved over here to this splitter so that they have a direct line, and their plug was on the fat side, so we went and had to move them. So we have more room here still if we need it. I had these inside that bag overnight just in case it rained last night, and on the other side I had them covered as well. This trailer right here is going to be one of the ham radio stations as well throughout. I'm going to be powering them. This trailer is not though, so they're more optional depending on what we get in the battery today and how the rate of consumption looks, I may have to cut them off so that I will save that power for the ham radios. And then this trailer over here, they are a ham radio station as well, so I'm planning on keeping them on my trailer throughout the night. I decided to go out on a bike ride, so I'm gonna take my e-bike out. We'll see how it goes. Unfortunately, the audio wasn't working on my Insta360 camera, and I didn't realize that at the time. So I was giving an update here on what the battery percentage was, and I don't remember what it was now. So yeah, I don't know what I started at. All right, here's the good spot to look at the view. I've currently gone 3.9 miles all uphill, and you can see all of that view from here. Look at that. You can barely see Strawberry Reservoir in the distance way down there at the bottom. I think I'm going to go until I get to 5 miles, so 1 more mile, and then I'll turn around and head down. As you can see on the trip meter right there, we've now gone 5 miles, and the battery is down to 51%. The view here is just really beautiful. Gorgeous mountain scenery. And interestingly, there is still some snow right there. There's a band of snow still melting. Also, I wanted to point out this cell phone mount right here. This was gifted to me to evaluate, and I'll put on the screen what it is, and I'll put a link in the description down below. It has a really good solid clamp right there that does not vibrate loose. So it works really well. I love this thing, and when I'm trying to navigate somewhere, I can pull up Google Maps on this, and it just works fantastic to be able to see where you're going, the next turn, and all of that. So the reason why I use these wired headphones instead of my normal wireless headphones while I'm riding my bike is because these headphones, I'll put on the screen what they are, but they are really good at passive noise cancellation. They seal off the ear canal and they eliminate all of the wind noise. So I can still hear really well while riding, and my wireless headphones don't work that well for that purpose. All right, I am now getting back to the ham radio field day base camp. And right now I've gone 9.7 miles. And the battery is at 62%. And I'll put on screen here how much battery that took total. And I'll also put on screen here what the elevation gain was going up to the peak that I did. As a status update in the trailer, the battery is currently at 19%, charging at 1900 watts. The solar is 2471 watts right now. And the AC loads are 338. It dropped down to 900 watts and now it's marching back up. Basically, this is the weather that we're getting right now. It's just intermittently cloudy. And so we'll see how this goes throughout the day. I thought I'd take this opportunity to do a brief review of these VEVOR X-Chocks. So right here is the X-Chocks that I typically use from B&L. And I've been using these for about 1.5 years now, and they work great. VEVOR reached out to me and offered to send me these to evaluate, and I thought I'd check them out. So you can see this is what it looks like when it's fully collapsed. And then this is how big it is, well, how big it needs to be for my gap between my tires. So a couple of things I noticed that are different. This one, the VEVOR came with this tool, which is obviously a way for you can power it with your powered tool, like a drill, if you want to. So that's kind of cool. The X-Chocks did not come with that. The X-Chocks came with this, which is a 3/4 inch wrench, and you can switch the direction of it. It's a ratcheting device. That's pretty typical. The VEVOR one came with the same type of tool, but it is much longer. I'll put them right here for a point of comparison. You can see the length is nearly double on the VEVOR wrench, so that's interesting. And then also the fitting is a different size. The VEVOR is a smaller size. Over here, actually, this says 17 millimeter, so that's what it is. So 17 millimeter here, 3/4 inch here. And then also another thing that I noticed is you can use your fingers on these to tighten or loosen. Obviously not get it tight enough, but move it. Whereas this one just has the bolt here, and you can't really move it with your hand very easily. You have to use the wrench for it. So that's just a subtle difference. I don't think that matters a whole lot. They both have this handle on the side like this here, so they're pretty equal that way. I noticed that the VEVOR moves more quickly, like the angle of attack on the screw is greater, so these come out faster with the same amount of movement of the screw there. So I'm gonna keep testing these out and we'll see how they go long term. But right now they look like they're a pretty good option, and I'll put a link in the description down below to this particular product. Where I could, here and there throughout the day, I was helping people set up their antenna arrays and just talking to them about their equipment. I've got Suzanne here with me, and she was showing me her antenna mast here on the back of her trailer. So I said, hey, can I grab my camera and can you show on my YouTube channel what you have set up here? She said, sure. So why don't you show me here what you have set up and all the different parts of it and how you put the extension on the top and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, this is a Scorpion screwdriver antenna. The way it works is I come out here, I get my stool, step up here, and I loosen up these bolts. And then at this point, I just let gravity do the work and I bring it down. I get my whip, I screw it into here, and then it's time to put it back up. And so I use momentum to get it back up.
Right there, there's a white sticker that says 20 m long, so 20 meters long. And the long refers to the whip that's on it. If she has the short whip on it over here, then she'll use a different sticker. So here she has a controller that she's holding, and so this is motorized, and she's raising it up right now. So that's how you select the bands.
Right.
That's so cool.
Right.
Are you able to run off of your DC batteries for quite some time, or do you have to run your generator often?
It'll do okay on the batteries for a pretty good long time. And I have a Jackery battery.
Okay. Yeah.
And I have some little lithium batteries.
Yeah.
And I also only use 5 watts if I'm going to be using just batteries. So I become a QRP person.
Yeah. And so if you wanted to talk to someone farther away, would you have to turn on your generator, or what do you have to do?
I would.
You would.
I would have to turn on the generator so that I could use my 100-watt power supply.
And so if you are using 100 watts, how far away have you made a contact?
Oh, Japan and South America, Europe.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and that's on that antenna.
That's the setup. Yeah, fantastic.
This thing is amazing. I'm always bragging about it because I thought Bruce really did a great job.
I agree. Absolutely. This guy has a 6-band antenna. So it's in a circular pattern, and it has 6 antenna wires going all the way around it. And he's going to be putting on this base, on this mast right here. It is now 2:19 p.m. and the battery is at 50%, and we're getting 2,400 watts of solar, and our current loads are 620 watts. It is really windy outside, but luckily wind doesn't really affect solar, and just cloud cover does. It's perfectly sunny. The 6-band antenna is now fully erected. You can see all of the individual circle-y lines up there at the top. There's 6 of them. And then we have it on this 25-foot mast with a couple of guy wires on the different sides holding it down because the wind is kind of strong. This is the club communication tower. It has a bunch of batteries here in the base. It's its own little trailer that you can tow around, and it has a large mast on it. And up there they have a couple of surveillance cameras and antennas, some from Ubiquiti. I think most of it's from Ubiquiti, actually. Here's a brief mid-afternoon update. It is now 3:47 p.m. and the battery is at 70%. Hey, Jessica and the kids made it. How was the drive here, girls?
We're good. We're listening to the second book of Indian in the Cupboard.
Yeah, okay, cool. How was the drive, James?
Did
you have a good time?
His eyes are just staring.
Let's go check the Tesla and see what the battery's at. She said it was at 93% when she left home. And so let's see where she got here. Oh, 54%. So it took 39% for her to drive up here, and the elevation gain is pretty significant, so it's going to take less than that to get back home. So we'll easily be able to go round trip in the Tesla here and then back home, not need to charge it anywhere. If we have excess solar power from the trailer, I'm going to experiment with charging it as well as powering these trailers, but I think based on how slowly the RV's battery's been charging today, I think we've kind of reached our limit and we're probably not going to be able to charge the Tesla much. But today has been a little bit of cloudy. Tomorrow is supposed to be perfectly sunny, so we'll find out. What do you have?
Flowers.
That is so pretty. You picked those just in the meadow right there? You got some yellow and some purple and white ones. Good job. The girls found some friends to play with. We got some new neighbors over here in a tent. As a brief systems update, it is now 4:14 p.m. and the battery is at 75%, and the solar production is varying still dramatically. Right now it's at 423, and just a moment ago it was like 2100 watts. We're about to cook some dinner. Actually, we have a casserole that's going to be cooking in the microwave for about half an hour, so that's going to use a chunk of power, and we'll see how it goes. The casserole is now cooking on the power convection setting here of the microwave, and the battery is at 77%, and the solar is still bouncing around, but we're consuming around, I don't know, 1800 watts or so on L1, and I don't know how much of that is the microwave. I forgot to look first. The casserole has been cooking for 10 minutes and it looks like it's done enough to eat, and the battery's down to 73%, so it used 4% of the battery. How's dinner?
Good. Great.
Shepherd's pie. How about you, Clara?
Tomato soup.
I've got Lucy and Lydia here in the trailer, and we're gonna go up the road, and I'm gonna show them the beautiful stream up there. Do you girls want to stop and look at the stream? All right. Well, do you want to see where the water starts? I'll take you to the very beginning of it, okay? This is the headwaters of the stream. So right here is an example of where water is just bubbling straight out of the ground. And then there's multiple holes over here where water is flowing out of the ground all the way across this embankment. And it makes for a pretty big rush of water all in this area. Above this, we can see that there is now no more water. And I rode my bike 5 miles up here this morning, and there was no water past this point. This is a spot in the stream just a short ways down the canyon. Has a little island there, which is fun. You got it, Lid. Good job. The girls got cold, so they put down their cover. This is another beautiful spot in the stream. And then down there way, you can see RVs in the distance. Here is another spot that is just absolutely gorgeous, especially this time of day. You got the meandering stream right there. And there's a campsite right there. That's a really good campsite. And just farther down from here is where another spring is coming out of the hillside. Girls, do you see that spring coming out of the side of the mountain right there? Yeah, and we're back. Okay, now I've got James and Clara, and I'm going to take them on the same ride that I just took Lucy and Lydia on. Are you excited? James is really excited. He was mad when he didn't get to go on the last trip. I've got James here and Clara. She immediately found a rock to throw in the water. He just wants to throw a rock. Here, James, there's one right there. This station right here is the GOTA, or Get on the Air station, and that is one of the trailers that I'm powering. And I put my electric meter on it, and it's currently pulling 31 watts pretty continuously while they're just listening. Now he is transmitting, and it spiked 173 watts is the highest I'm seeing, but it really is jumping around a lot. But he's transmitting for a little longer so I can get a read on how much power it's pulling. And then he's going to stop transmitting here in a second, and it's just going to go back to the 31 watts. Yep, there he goes. He's done. As a side note, this is a power strip of which were donated to me by this company here, and I'll put the link in the description below for these power strips. But they have a 10-foot lead that goes all the way over to the end of the adapter right there, and they have a really flush low-profile plug. This is how low-profile the plug is, and that is like the thinnest plug I have seen on any of these power strips that I've ever had. And the 10-foot cord is definitely very helpful. And then also on this power strip on the end of it, it has one USB-C port and 2 USB-A ports, and you can see that they can output a total of 3.4 amps max. Quick evening update on the RV. It's now 7:05 p.m. and the battery's up to 83%. We've now added one more apparatus to my trailer. It's this mast antenna I was showing earlier. The extension cord now is coming along the ground here, and around the corner, going into this power strip that I have here in front of this trailer. And this one is pulling 28 watts is all. So at this point, including my trailer, that is 7 trailers connected to mine and being powered from mine. All of the other trailers, I've asked them to change their refrigerators to be only on propane, and that has helped to be a sustainable amount of electricity consumption. We'll see how it goes tonight, and in the morning we'll find out, how much power we have left. And then tomorrow is supposed to be a sunnier day, so my hope is that we'll get the battery pretty close to fully charged tomorrow, because there are going to be people on radios all night tomorrow night. And it is currently 8:30 p.m. The kids are all in bed. James is down here in his pack and play, and then back here Lucy's on the top bunk reading still, and then Lydia and Claire are in the bunks down below that you can't see because they're dark. What are you reading, Lucy?
I'm reading this.
The Capture?
The Guardians of Gahul.
Guardians of Gahul. Coming back here to the Victron Monitoring Portal, we already talked about this early part of the day, and you can see that the battery got down to 5%, and then I turned on the switch to enable my neighbors to start using my electricity again, and then they used a lot of electricity running their microwaves or whatever it is that they use electricity for first thing in the morning, and it got down to 0%, but it never fully shut off, so that's good. And then finally the solar started to keep up with them and then even charge the batteries, and that's this blue line, state of charge, going up. And it looks like the battery was increasing fairly rapidly. You can see here is about 13% per hour. And then in the afternoon the solar production started to drop off, and the battery peaked at 83% and then started to run back down again, and this was the loads throughout the evening. So for that day, the consumption was 13.5 kilowatt hours and the solar production was 19.4 kilowatt hours. If we switch to the next morning, you can see this is what it looked like throughout the night as it was continuing to drain the battery, and we bottomed out at 17%. But let's go back to our updates and I'll come back to this at the end of the day. It is now the next morning at 6:06 a.m. and the battery is at 36%, which is excellent. Outside it's 39 degrees and inside it's 51, almost 52 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the mini split, the heat pump, and warm it up here in the trailer. The mini split is ramping up still, but you can see the power consumption has increased up to 1400 watts. It's probably going to go up even more because it's still spooling up the compressor. And the sun just barely came over that mountain, and so now we're getting some direct sunlight, and it's at 213 watts. It is 7:09 a.m. right now, and right now it is 58.5 degrees outside and 69.3 degrees inside. Hey girls, how did you sleep last night?
Good.
Were you warm or cold?
Cold.
How are you now?
Warm.
We had the mini split off all night until 6 this morning when I showed you that I had turned it on, and so it's now 70 degrees in here, which makes a big difference. And it was 36% on the battery, so we've used 8% to bring up the temperature over the last 2 hours. One of our neighbors is running their microwave, and that's on L1, and so I switched our microwave over to L2, and now we're running it as well. So we're pulling quite a bit of wattage between the two at the moment. We're down to 24%, pulling 3,500 watts off the battery. Right now we have both the inverters with high loads, and I think that probably neighbors are both using microwaves simultaneously, but luckily they're on different inverters. That is one of the tricky elements of this experiment, is coordination, which there isn't any, so it's just kind of the luck that they're not on the same inverter. Otherwise it might make it shut down. We're down to 20% now, and it's 7:38 a.m. It's now 7:50 a.m. and all of the heavy loads stopped. We're down to 17%, charging at 315 watts, and we're getting 691 watts of solar. Here's a 9 a.m. update. We're up to 22% on the battery, and we're getting 1,255 watts of solar, and we have 200 watts going out. I just turned off the mini split. It was on heating all morning, and now it's off. It was set to 70 degrees all morning, and now it's 73 inside and 58.6 outside. And we're just currently getting all of the radios set up, and today at noon is when field day begins. And the kids are out there just playing with their friends. My consumption just barely jumped up to about 444 watts because I just barely plugged in my e-bike and started it charging. So that's pulling some additional wattage right now. This is one of the trailers that's going to be running a radio today. And then most of the rest of these are just people camped out here. And then this Puma right here is powered off of my trailer, and right now we are setting up a new antenna for it. So this truck and trailer has the equipment, and we've got the mast being set up right there, and then they're stringing out the wire out this way. The antenna for that trailer right there is this one that's strung across here. You can see there's 3 poles for it, so it's a center fed antenna right there.
They are going to lift this mast.
Lucy was filming for me. Thanks, Lucy. So I'm helping to hold one of these guide wires. There's 4 of them, and you can see the mast in the center there. Okay, Lucy's holding this one now. Thanks, Lucy. And so we just now need to get these 4 white ones staked down, and they are attached to the pole at the top. Thanks for helping, Lucy. Lucy and I are headed over to Trout Creek, where we were playing last year, just to see how much more water there is. What a beautiful place, huh? All this lush green grass. Lucy and the girls want to drink some of this water, so we're gonna get a bucket full of it and then go run it through our Berkey water filter so they can see what it tastes like. Lucy and Lydia are doing a good job carrying it for a minute. I'm gonna pour the water into the Berkey. Because it's a gravity fed filter, I can lift this up and we can see it coming through, dripping through the filter elements. So it's gonna take a few minutes. Mountain stream water.
Mountain fresh?
Mountain fresh spring water, yes. What did you think it tastes like, Lydia?
Good.
Does it taste like a mountain spring?
No. Yes.
Yes? No?
Yes.
The frequency that we're going to be running just on our handhelds is 146.54. It's on simplex. That way we can communicate with each other on our handhelds.
It's now 2:02 p.m. and you can see the battery is up to 80%. So we're doing really good today. Right now we're getting 2200 watts of solar, and we're still putting out about 700, well, it bounces around all the time, energy, AC energy. Today is a perfectly sunny day, so obviously the solar is way better than it was yesterday when it was intermittently overcast. Otherwise, there isn't really much different. So I'm really glad to see that we're charging up really well. There are people planning on being on radios all night tonight. So I wanted to have as full a battery as possible to ensure that they never have any interruptions in their electricity while they're broadcasting tonight. So it's looking really good. The battery's going to get full, and then once it gets really close to being full, then I'm going to plug in one of the Teslas that's here and start charging the Tesla off the trailer so that the trailer doesn't get completely full, because I don't want the solar panels to stop producing electricity. It is now 3:09 p.m. and the battery is at 95%, and it's charging at 1500 watts. We're getting 2100 watts of solar. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to start charging my Tesla off of the trailer to take up the excess electricity, since it would be too much work to plug in more trailers right now. They're already set up. What I've done is I have the extension cord coming from my trailer right here, and this is the junction that I showed earlier. I've plugged in my mobile connector here from my Tesla, and it's going around underneath my truck. So I'm going to plug this in, and then I'm going to go into my settings in the car and adjust the amps probably all the way to the bottom. So I'm going to be monitoring this closely this afternoon, and my goal is I want to go into the evening with the RV battery being as nearly fully charged as possible, but I don't want it to be fully charged because I want the solar panels to continue to produce electricity. So I've started this at 95% to just give myself a little bit of a safety margin, but as the afternoon progresses and we get closer to the evening, then I'll stop the Tesla charging at some point and let the RV battery fill up even more. And if the loads from the other trailers around me, if they increase their consumption or decrease their consumption, I'm going to adjust the amps that the Tesla is pulling to fine-tune that and just maintain the RV battery as close to 100% as possible, but just shy of it. It's only pulling 600 watts right now. So here in the trailer, it's still charging. The battery's at 876 watts, and it's now at 96%. So I'm going to go probably double the Tesla amperage to 10 amps, and at 120 volts. Then this will be barely just kind of close to maintaining its state of charge. We're at 96% on the battery and it's charging at 19 watts, and that's pretty much perfectly equilibrium. So I'm just going to leave it there. Solar is 2100 watts. You can see my Tesla's on L2, so it's currently pulling 1336 watts. But that's not just my car, that's all of the other trailers and radios that are currently plugged in on that inverter. So yeah, it's kind of a fun little experiment. I realized I had another method to more equally distribute the load of the excess power because there's another Tesla here. So I plugged in the other Tesla and I reduced mine back down to 5 amps. So mine's on L2 and the other Tesla is on L1, and they're both pulling 5 amps. And our RV battery is now still slightly charging, but only a little bit. So I'll go outside now and show you the other Tesla. So this is my Tesla here charging, and here's a Model 3 that is also here charging. So looking in here at the Model 3 charge screen, you can see I have adjusted the amps down to 5 here. The extension cord that's coming in my direction is where this one is plugged in at, and it's actually going under this truck and it's over here, but it is plugged in to this junction. So he's on L2 and I'm on L1, and we are actually on totally different extension cords as well, but that doesn't really matter. It is now 5:05 p.m. and the battery's down to 94%. We're withdrawing 344 watts there. We're getting 1600 watts of solar. I'm going to go disconnect one of the Teslas, so that's going to add 600 watts back, and I'm going to let this charge back up closer to probably 98%. Kind of fun that we were charging 2 Teslas at the same time, but now I'm going to stop this one from charging, and then I'm going to go unplug it as well because the solar production is decreasing and I don't need the 2 different cars pulling at the same time. The minimum that they'll let us charge at is 5 amps, and I need to be able to adjust it in more finite detail than that. So I might adjust my Tesla to be more than 5 amps for a little bit, and then I'll come back down eventually. And it's time for the potluck dinner that we have every Saturday evening as part of the ham radio field day. Well, I messed up for just a brief moment. It was at 96%, so I thought I wasn't risking anything. I went and flew the drone and came back in here. It's only been a few minutes, and I got to 100% all of a sudden. I hurried and plugged in my Tesla, so now it's bringing it back down from 100%. So my solar today will be probably 99.8% accurate. My solar output from the panels today. We're at 6:50 p.m. and the battery's at 98%, and the amount of charging of the battery is varying quite a bit depending on the loads. Sometimes it's charging, sometimes it's discharging. We're currently getting just shy of 1,000 watts of solar, and I have disconnected both of the Teslas, so this is now just the other trailers and the radios running and stuff like that. So I think that the 100 we got to will definitely be the peak today, obviously, but my managed peak that I was shooting for is this 98, and I think that's where it's going to be, and we're not going to charge the Teslas anymore today, and I'm just going to keep monitoring this to make sure the batteries don't get to 100% again. I might plug in the car again, but I don't think I will based on what I've been seeing. We went out for a little evening adventure. I rode up here on my bike with 2 of my kids, and then Jessica drove up in our Model S. This road is a little gnarly, but it made it just fine. We raised the air suspension all the way up. Not too bad. The Model S has a really tight turning radius. Going in the other direction, this is one of the bumpier spots. It's actually pretty steep, but it did it just fine. Hey Lucy, what you doing?
Goes up to the
Marshmallows in the smokeless stove. How did it turn out, Lucy?
Good.
Or great?
Great.
It is now 10:43 p.m. and the battery's at 69%, and we're pulling a kilowatt out of it right now. So we'll see how well it lasts throughout the night. This is the Victron Monitoring Portal for that day. You already saw the morning where it was just pulling evenly throughout the night, and then we had the surges in the morning from people's breakfast and whatnot. The battery got down as low as 17% that morning, and then you can see this is a beautiful bell curve of solar production throughout the day as there weren't any clouds at all. And the battery was increasing in charge fairly rapidly, once again about 13% per hour through the middle part of the day. And then up here is when I started to charge the Teslas, and so it was able to keep it from getting full. And then I unplugged the Tesla, and I'm not sure what happened, but I accidentally let it get to 100 for just a brief moment, and it spanned the changing of the hour, so it makes it look like it lasted longer than it did. And then it started to come back down, and we were pulling down pretty hard throughout the evening. You can see that the radios that were broadcasting and whatever all else was pulling energy was pulling consistently around 800 to 840 watts throughout the evening. And then looking down here at the consumption, we used 16.5 kilowatt hours throughout the day, and the solar produced 19.9 kilowatt hours throughout the day. And then switching over to the following day, you can see this is what it looked like throughout the night. And so now let's jump into the updates for that day. It is now 7:21 a.m. and the battery got down to 7%. So we made it. We didn't run out, but it's fairly close. Our solar is now 456 watts, and and the consumption is very dramatic. It spikes a lot. Just it depends on when people are transmitting on the radios and the volume of what they're saying, how much energy is being drawn. But sometimes it's slightly charging the batteries, and sometimes they're heavily being discharged. But here in a second, or in a few minutes, the solar is probably going to get high enough that the batteries are more consistently just breaking even and not being drawn down still. And as you can see, the sun has just barely come over that ridge. So we are getting direct sunlight now. Good morning, kids. How did you sleep?
Great.
So Clara was perfect, Lydia was perfect, Lucy?
At the beginning of the night, I was hot, so I took my jacket off. And then I got cold again, so I put my jacket back on and another shirt.
So it was on the cold side.
And it got cold.
You got a little cold. Okay. Yeah. Outside it is 41.4 degrees and inside it's currently 54.5. So normally right now I would turn on the mini split to warm it up in here, and we did not have it on all night. However, because we are powering our neighbors right now and they're still using radios and whatnot, their consumption is high enough that the solar hasn't quite broken even with, it hasn't started supplying those needs yet. We still have 6% battery, but I think it's probably going to dip down to 5% before the solar generation is starting to break even, and then we'll be able to, maybe heat something for breakfast or turn on the mini split, or have some energy to work with. But we're pretty close to the bottom, so I don't dare use much more at this point. And it is 7:32 a.m. It's now 7:48 a.m. and the battery's down to 5%, and it is now starting to charge just a little bit, but sometimes it's being discharged. Just depends on the loads and their fluctuations. We're now getting 671 watts of solar, so I'm pretty confident this is now the bottom of the normal usage, but we're potentially going to be using a microwave here soon, so it's probably still going to get lower. But I'm kind of waiting for the solar generation just to build a little bit more, probably till about 8 a.m. before we start using more energy. This right here is a generator powering this trailer, and this is one of the trailers that I was unable to reach and to power their station. And I asked him how much gasoline he uses. He's been doing this for many years, and he says with this generator and its efficiency, it normally uses 7 gallons of gasoline over the course of the days that he's here for field day. And I'm powering all of these trailers over here, of which there are 3 stations. And actually, the area that I'm powering would normally be having 4 generators running. So 28 gallons of gas times $4 of per gallon of gasoline. I'm saving this collective group behind me, who I'm powering, about $112 worth of gasoline, plus all of the noise pollution from the generators that would be running otherwise. So kind of a cool little factoid. First thing in the morning, the kids are out in the field looking for flowers and bugs and who knows what. We're now getting 1 kilowatt of solar, actually 1100 watts, and our battery's at 6%. It has dipped down to 5 like once or twice, just from people having increased loads. You can see your L2 has a bigger load right now. Probably someone's running a microwave or something. And right now it's 8:40 a.m. just for point of reference. The girls are going to try their hand on getting on the air.
Kilo 7 Golf Sierra Lima. Kilo 7.
Station, come back.
Say Roger, Roger.
Roger, Roger.
Thank you for the contact. I'll copy 1 Bravo in Utah or Idaho. 1 Bravo, India Delta. QSL?
Say QSL, what's your call sign?
QSL, what's your call sign?
Our call sign is Alpha 7 Tango Whiskey. Roger, Roger.
Roger, Roger.
Roger, Roger.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Section, please.
Say 3 Alpha Utah.
I'm 3 Alpha Utah.
Very good. 3 Alpha Utah.
Say 7-3.
7-3.
Yeah, good job, Lucy.
Kilo 7 Golf Sierra Lima.
Whoa, that was great.
He heard you.
Say, please copy 3 Alpha Utah.
Please copy 3 Alpha Utah.
Okay, thank you very much. You have a very good radio voice.
Kilo 7 Golf Sierra Lima.
One Echo, New Mexico, over.
Say thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And your exchange, your report, please.
Say please copy 3 Alpha Utah.
Please copy.
3 Alpha.
Please copy 3 Alpha Utah.
Gotta say it louder.
Okay,
Please copy 3 Alpha Utah.
for your section.
Say it again. Please copy 3 Alpha Utah.
Please copy 3 Alpha Utah.
Utah, thank you very much. And how old are you?
How old are you?
C5.
5.
5 years old. Okay, have fun on the radio. Have a good day, okay?
Say 7-3.
7 3.
73. Keywords at November
did
Mike
it.
5 Hotel Romeo. Field day.
Yeah, that was awesome. Well, field day is now complete. It is now about 12:20 p.m. and so all the radios have finished transmitting and people have been packing up and leaving already. The battery on the trailer is now at 46%, where remember it bottomed out at 5% this morning, and we're currently getting 2200 watts of solar. Our loads are 339, so a little bit on the low side, and that's because some of the trailers that were connected to us have already disconnected and have left. So right now we're just starting getting packed up now that our electricity isn't needed anymore, and I'm going to coil up all my cables and whatnot. And you can see there's a couple of gaps where there were trailers before. Just real quick, as we're taking off, I wanted to point out the battery is now at 63% and we're getting 2300 watts of solar. We have 1600 watts of loads, and I'm actually just going to go ahead and turn off the inverter since we're not using that and we don't need it on right now. We are all packed up and we are heading out now. Girls, what did you think of this trip? Did you have lots of fun? James and Lydia are in the Tesla and Jessica is driving the Tesla home. Our trailer is all hooked up and we're heading out. We are at the Mountain Valley Resort in Heber. This is the RV resort, and they have a jump station here for us to use, which is nice of them. So we're just dumping our tanks and then we'll head on home. We just got home and the battery is at 94%, charging at 2 kilowatts, and the solar is 2100 watts. So I'm going to turn on the inverters now and start charging the Tesla. I'm now charging the Tesla from the RV, so you can see it's discharging the batteries at the rate of 3500 watts. We are at 95% now. We're getting 2 kilowatts of solar still, and we're sending 4600 watts into the Tesla, and right now it is 3:30 p.m. Looking at the Victron Monitoring Portal for that day, the previous morning we kind of already saw briefly where the energy was being pulled down pretty quickly throughout the night from all of the radios transmitting throughout the night, and then we bottomed out at 5%, and we actually stayed there for a while as the solar was just starting to ramp up, and somehow it kind of just was breaking even for a bit there, even though I felt like there were fewer microwaves running that morning than normal, because usually there's a bigger spike when people wake up. And then the solar started to take off, and then at this point people were packing up and leaving, and we did as well. So this is where I turned off my inverters, and that's why there's no red columns here, because the red columns show the AC energy consumption, and the DC consumption does not show up on this graph. And so that's the time that we were driving home, and we were still getting tons of solar because we were driving and it was mostly sunny where we're driving. This is one of the advantages of rooftop solar panels versus ground deploy, is that it still produces while you're driving. And then our battery got to 97% before I started discharging the batteries of the trailer into our Tesla, and so we were sending multiple kilowatts of energy per hour into the Tesla and pulled it all the way down to 19% into the evening. So our consumption that day was 19.5 kilowatt hours, and our solar production was a record-breaking 20.2 kilowatt hours. This is the most energy our trailer solar panels have produced in a single day over the whole time that we've had the trailer, which is now just a couple months shy of 2 years. Now that the grand experiment is complete, I can give a couple of findings just as I was thinking about how it went. So I had a total of 7 trailers powered from my trailer. 2 of those trailers were communications type trailers. They weren't RVs with people living in them. But the other 5 were full-on RVs, and I was powering all of their systems except for their absorption refrigerators on electric. I was the first night, and then I had them turn that off because as I was trying to balance the loads, I just determined that that was too much energy suck going to their fridges. The other thing that I would potentially change if I was to try to either power more trailers in the future or perhaps just have a little bit more safety margin and that would be to tell them not to use their microwaves until my RV battery is, you know, healthily charged up. Because usually they wanted to use the microwave in the morning, and did, and my battery was at the lowest at that point, having just come through the night with, you know, all this extra drain more than normal. And so there were a couple times where I was like, oh, this is really close, so that I might run out of energy before the sun really starts to take off. And then also, to go along with that, the microwaves typically were spiking the consumption by about 1500 watts or so. And you know, the inverters are capable of outputting 2400 watts, so half of that is 1200 watts. So just 2 microwaves were potentially exceeding one of the inverter's capabilities. Now, I never saw that 2 microwaves were turned on at the same time on the same inverter, so that never became a problem, and I think it would have handled the surge okay as long as it didn't last for too long. What did happen is microwaves were running simultaneously, they just were luckily on separate inverters. We actually did have a moment when 2 microwaves were running simultaneously on the same inverter, and that was us. We started ours, and I was watching the power screen, and then I saw someone else turn on their microwave, and I can hear the tone change on the inverter when it has extra load like that. So I looked up, saw the numbers, and hurried and stopped our microwave so that they could complete their whatever they were doing, and then when the consumption dropped back down, then I turned our microwave back on and finished what we were doing. So there was a little bit of balancing that way, and overall it worked out just fine. I'm just trying to think, like, in the future, if I were to power a whole bunch of RVs, how could I make it go more seamlessly? And it was pretty seamless. It just, from my perspective, I had all the information and they didn't, and they just were living their lives in their RVs, you know, with me expecting to be able to supply the power until I couldn't, and then they would switch back to their inverters, their generators. They never needed to do that, and they never had any problems. I was just looking at the numbers and a couple of times thinking, oh, I'm really close to the bottom. It ended up working out just fine, though. So in conclusion, this power system on my trailer is definitely overkill for just one trailer. I already knew that. You know, camping, our battery fills up very quickly. So clearly, my design is working well to have lots of excess power for our future electric truck, hopefully the Tesla Cybertruck, of which I intend to get to tow this trailer with eventually, you know, once I can get my hands on a Cybertruck. So it's outfitted nicely for that. Overall, it was really fun talking to the participants of the event. They were very appreciative of the power I was able to supply, and I actually had about half of the circle of wagons supplied with power, and so there was no sound of generators on our side of the event, and people noticed and said that they appreciated not having to run their generators and how quiet it was over on that side. This is a crowd of technology kind of people. They were checking the voltage, and they said that there was minimal to no voltage sag. The trailer that was the farthest away, they were on their shore power cord for their RV, and then they had a large, I think 25-foot long TT30 extension cord on it, and then a NEMA 515 extension cord on that, going into my extension cords that go to my trailer. So they had a long run, and they were at 119 volts with some load on the trailer as well. And also, I was having discussions with them about noise interference being added into the radios from power supplies, like, you know, my shore power, and they said the power coming from this trailer was absolutely clean and as good as it gets, you know, pure sine wave inverters. And the bigger issue typically is actually the solar charge controllers adding in a lot of noise, and I have the MPPT version. It has no noise, and so they didn't have any problems with that at all, versus the PWM solar charge controllers, which do cause a lot of interference and extra noise on the line typically. Overall, the whole system worked really well. I'm really pleased with how I was able to hook them all up with power. And with that, I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
Ha ha ha!